Okay, President Trump has just dropped a big declaration on what's going on in Iran. Trump has just signaled to protesters in Iran that help is on its way. Trump has communicated directly to protesters around Iran saying, I have cancelled all meetings. Help is coming. He says killers and abusers will pay a big price. Remember, the Trump administration had bombed Iranian nuclear facilities last year, that is in middle of 2025. Now Trump says help is on its way. I have cancelled all my meetings. Killers and abusers will pay a big price. This comment from the president on his social media comes amidst stray reports that there has been aircraft activity from US bases in different parts of the world. None of it confirmed to be connected with any kind of intended or potential action in Iran. So we don't wish to speculate on military action. So we don't know what Trump's big Iran declaration currently means. But senior managing editor Vishnu Shom is live with me. Vishnu, Trump, in signature style says help is coming. I have cancelled all my meetings and the killers and abusers will pay a big price. What are you making of this, Vishnu?
I think this is a clear statement that is an attempt to encourage the protesters on the ground in Iran to continue protesting, to continue taking on the regime, to push for regime change. This is a revolution taking place in Iran now. The question is, when is it going to end and who's going to be successful? There is a sense, and speaking to so many Iranian dissidents and others, that this will not be done immediately. It will take a period of time. But I would like to mention, and our viewers would want to know, when Trump threatens military action, what is he meaning?
Yeah.
Are we talking about boots on the ground in Iran, or are we talking about airstrikes, missile strikes? I would suggest that boots on the ground is not something we should expect at all.
I want to just read out that statement once again. This is word for word what President Trump has just said. He says, Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions. Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I have cancelled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on its way. MEGA, that is Make Iran Great Again. President Donald J. Trump. So big declaration. There's going to be a lot of speculation, Vishnu, as to what kind of action this is going to manifest as. There have been reports about, aircraft taking off from the United States. But as you and I both know, none of this has been seen to be confirmedly connected with any kind of intended action in Iran. But we'll be keeping a watch on this very, very closely now. Aditya Rajkol is also with me. Aditya has been tracking the interwebs and communications between countries at this time over what's going on in Iran. Big signal from Trump, Aditya. How are you reading it?
Well, it's a huge statement, cancelling all the meetings because Iran had reached out. Iranian foreign minister came out in public and said that we are ready to hold dialogue for the nuclear facilities and the kind of apprehensions that Donald Trump might have. But even though those meetings with Witkoff were underway, Shiv, now the statement coming in, well, all these meetings have been cancelled and Donald Trump himself, the US president, is encouraging the protesters, the anti-regime protesters, that you keep protesting and help is on its way. It's a huge statement. It could change the dynamics of the Middle East completely. Also, there is a fear that is gripping in the administration in Iran, in the regime in Iran, that there seems to be much more that seems to be boiling because Israel seems to be silent in some way and they want the things to play out on its own in an organic fashion. Now, Iranian regime may say, Shiv, that US and Israel are trying to provoke this violence, but there are civilian groups that are engaged. There are some reports from the Norwegian human rights groups that say that more than 5,000 people have been killed. Official numbers of those people who have been killed have not been come out.
Yeah.
But both Trump and Marco Rubio have come out on social media and said, keep protesting, help is on its way. Does it mean a military intervention? Does it mean a limited strike? Well, perhaps the days ahead will clarify that.
But I think, as Vishnu also said, and Vishnu, coming back to you on this, letting this play out organically seems to be the sensible thing to do as far as Trump is concerned, because we do know that Iran, in the context of regime change, was very much on the table in the wake of what happened in Venezuela, and the unprecedented scale of these protests that Aditya has just described clearly pushes along what Trump has wanted in Iran anyway. The fact that the Trump administration will probably try and fund and aid the protests, signaling support from the outside, clearly means let them scale up even bigger. He's practically saying capture the institutions.
He's talking about capturing the institutions.
Yeah.
He wants the Iranians to do this internally. But that said, if you are to look at military options, then I would suggest that decapitation strikes are something which cannot be ruled out.
Yeah.
It's something the Iranian leadership would be well aware of. They would have been aware of it when Israel hit them earlier on, the US hit them earlier on at their nuclear facilities. We know that the Israelis have been extremely successful in this, in taking out their adversaries, their enemies, whether it's in Lebanon or in Gaza or in Syria. The technology certainly exists for this. It's a question of intelligence. It's a question of whether they want to go that far. It's also a question of America recognizing that perhaps people in Iran, while wanting to get rid of the regime in power now, may not necessarily want an American alternative. They want their own freedom. To what extent do they want an American led sort of regime, as it were, or supported and endorsed regime in Iran is something we don't know at this stage.
That's true, because protesters, while one voice among protesters, Aditya, have been talking about the son of the Shah of Iran, others have said, we don't want any of this. We want to choose someone new entirely and not someone who's linked with the past of Iran and people they actually blame for the current situation. But I want to talk about Israel for a moment. Both Aditya and Vishnu have traveled recently to Israel. They've reported on military readiness in that country. There is no doubt that, should the balloon go up and military action become a reality in whatever is coming next, Aditya, Israel will have to play a very, very central role in what takes place. The United States has more than enough capacity in and around Iran to execute military actions in that country, including, decapitation strikes as Vishnu described it. But Israel, won't be a side player if things actually escalate from here.
Well, you are absolutely bang on, Shiv, when you mentioned that Reza Pahlavi might be instigating, might be the cheerleader for the protests. He has been issuing daily videos and asking people to protest, but he may not be necessarily an alternative at this point in time. He's been in exile for some time now, from many decades. And the question really is, does he really have the kind of support for a democracy transition to really take place and lead that? The answer is no. So clearly, Trump identifies that. He was asked this question very recently, and he said that he wasn't sure that this is going to happen. What's happening in the White House and the national security apparatus in US as well is that there is a division of opinion. There is a section that wants a military strike immediately. There's another section that wants the organic protest to continue. And for that to reach that boiling point, when US and Israel or somebody else has to intervene at that particular time. At this moment, I've been speaking to Israeli diplomats and those who function very closely with the Israeli national security apparatus, including the former deputy national security advisor of Israel. And their opinion, the intelligence assessment of Israel at this point in time, is that there is no immediate regime change that can happen. They have to look at the alternatives, and they are still waiting for the protest to reach that scale and boiling point when a regime change could perhaps happen, or discussions around it could happen.
Aditya and Vishnu, hang on for a moment with me. We're also joined by Nigar Mojtahedi. She's a Canadian-Iranian journalist based in Vancouver, Canada. Nigar, good to see you. Thanks for being with me here. A big statement coming out of President Trump. He says, hold on, I'm coming there. Help is on its way. I've cancelled all my meetings. How do you interpret this, Nigar?
It's hard to say with President Donald Trump, but it definitely is a big statement. I mean, there could be many things that this could entail. Does this mean that you could target oil and gas sites at Kharg Island? Does this mean going after the regime apparatus that is carrying out currently crimes against humanity, against the people of Iran? Here at Iran International, reporting that at least 12,000 people have been killed in 2 days. 12,000 people in just 2 days. That's more than an entire month that we saw with the war in Gaza. It could mean even going after the supreme leader himself. Would they be carrying out some covert hits in conjunction with Israel and the Mossad? That has yet to be determined. But I mean, this is a very about face from what we saw just the other night on Air Force One, where President Donald Trump had said that the Iranians had reached out to him about the nuclear deal and that he might talk to them. So this is definitely a big jump from that.
How should protesters on the ground, Nigar, if I can ask you that, how would they look at this signal from Trump? Trump hasn't provided any details, but I'm assuming when he says help is coming, he means there's going to be some kind of material support for this revolution inside Iran. Do you have a guess on what this could mean on the ground for the protesters themselves?
Will embolden them. It will give them strength. It will give them energy. It will give them some sort of reassurance. At the same time, at the beginning of these protests, more than a week ago, President Donald Trump said also that we are locked and loaded, and that if you kill any protesters, that's my red line as president. I will come after you. However, that has yet to be seen. So for a lot of protesters, it may be a confusing signal, but even despite the confusion, I think it will give them some energy again, because as I said, they're unarmed, and this has gone beyond a protest. This has gone beyond a revolution. This now appears to be a war that the Islamic Republic is waging against its own people.
Do you see military action being part of what happens next? Some kind of military action, possibly even limited military action?
I would say that that's kind of the only solution at this point. I can't imagine what else would need to happen to stop this regime from killing its people. Again, these people are unarmed. So there is no other line of defense than some sort of kinetic, limited military action, maybe like what we saw in Venezuela, for example.
If military action does take place, Nigar, in a country like Iran, this would be perhaps one of the most destructive conflicts in the region, because Iran has a large, conventional military. Do you think Iran would simply, go down without a fight, even in the face of overwhelming force from the United States and its allies, or do you think there will actually be conflict?
I don't think that there would actually be conflict. I mean, they may try and do what they usually do and go for U.S. air bases in the region and things like that, but I don't see a full-scale war. I mean, you have to remember that the Artesh, the military, is separate from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, from the regular IRGC, and in these types of instances, the Artesh doesn't get involved.
Okay, so Trump has sent out a signal saying help is on its way. He says he has stopped meeting with all Iranian officials, until this situation is settled. He has deliberately kept that signal, very, very vague on this matter. Thank you very much, Nigar, for your insight onto this. Hugely valuable to hear from Iranians both in the country and outside. And remember, as a result of the internet being disrupted in that country, it's very difficult to connect with protesters and voices inside Iran. But Vishnu, the Indian government will also be looking extremely closely at these developments now. You and I both covered, Aditya as well, covered, the United States attacks on Iran last year and the imminence of possible more military attacks on that country make this a huge, huge flashpoint at the beginning of 2026.
Well, New Delhi would be looking at it for a couple of other reasons. Remember, Donald Trump has said that there'll be 25% immediate sanctions on any nation that trades with Iran. Now, India has a trade of about a 1.2 billion is what the value of Indian exports, as I understand it, to Iran are. Presumably, India would somehow or the other need to put an end to that, at least for the moment, because, we already are at 50%, sanctions as far as trade with the United States are concerned. We cannot afford to have that going up to 75%. It really doesn't matter. That said, $1.2 billion is not very, very much. But I think the larger issue is also of the Chabahar port. That's a port that India has invested in very, very strongly. It's an Iranian port through which we have supply lines going into Afghanistan, going into Central Asia, of acute strategic importance for India. Now, there is a waiver as far as the Americans are concerned. They have allowed us for the moment to control or continue controlling the Chabahar port. But it remains to be seen, and we have put out inquiries on this. No clear answer as yet on the fate of Indian control over Chabahar port, and indeed on what happens when it comes to Indian exports on Iran, because a lot of those are basic items, food items, possibly even healthcare items. Will these be impacted as well? No immediate answers at the moment.